Hello everybody, it's Silvana and welcome back to the channel. So let's talk today a little more about writing. Um, well, here we are. Yes, you'll notice we're on something blank because Scrivener is cool and it breaks things up to manuscript, characters, places, and I didn't take the time or really know what I was doing to fill anything out for the characters in this book. And it's the only place in the book now that's safe to sit because it is blank because as you notice, my marking system says that all the green means they are completed chapters. Now this is just the zero draft. I haven't edited it at all. My plan with this is just to let it sit and chill, take a break for July, to have some fun with camp. Then when camp is over, I will come back to this and edit it. Once I went through and edited things, I realized as I got down into these last few chapters that I had forgotten to do up here or forgotten to continue to do through the book. So once it is where I feel actually 100%, it's not getting any better. Well, it's not getting, that's it, that's done. It's going to get better. It's just done. I will take the copies and then I will send them to my beta, my readers, because I've kind of skipped the alpha and the beta, just lumped them all together and said screw it. And we'll start that process of the final polish edit. Now, once that's done, we'll go into starting to look at shit for publishing. My plan is, at this point, what I'm writing for July, unless I feel that I've made it changed enough. I know we've talked about what we're doing for July. It's going to be a daily vlog. You're going to watch me work and go insane. It's not going to be published. It's not even going to get self-published. I really don't want to deal with I almost said Stephanie Meyer, and that's wrong. E.L. James or Stephanie Meyer, since E.L. James's work is based on Twilight, which I've never read. So there's at least that bonus to me. I can't get busted for copying Stephanie's work. I ain't read that shit. But for me, the major premise that's that's in 50 Shades that's gonna stay into the rewritten work is he's rich, she's not, and there's BDSM in their relationship, but it's going to be legitimately researched and from a more informed and correct point of view, and the problems with both their characters are going to go, at least I'm going to try to make them go away. So let's talk back to this work. In August, I'm going to spend August editing this. I don't think it'll take me all of August. I kind of want to write book 2 now in July, instead of waiting. Because my original set plan for this was finish by the end of June, start the 50 Shades rewrite in July, and finish it up in August. Since it took me 2 months to write my own, I figure it wouldn't take me more than that to rewrite somebody else's. Edit this in September, and where for November I would be writing for regular Nano. I would be writing either book 2 or maybe book 3. I wasn't really sure, and that's still a possibility that could be done. We could write 50 for funds in July. We put it on, where however far we get done, Then for August, we could edit this. Be done, I'll say all of August to edit, though I don't think it'll take me that long, because for the most part, other than reading through and making sure everything's grammatic, because Scrivener has spell check, so I'm not, well, I want to make sure I'm using the correct version of like it's and there and stuff like that, because even I, who've done 4 years of honors English, if I get typing really fast, I'll make those kind of mistakes. But I usually will read, like if I'm posting something on Facebook or Twitter or what have you, to make sure that I, fix those kinds of issues before it goes out into the world. The self-published novella is what I'm going to call it short story. Let me change that. The self-published short story, I wrote that quickly. I put it up in a forum. It did very well in the forum. I took it directly from there and self-published it. I did not edit it in any way, and it shows. So I try not to make those kinds of mistakes. I've played back and forth with the idea of removing self-published novel from the Kindle store to fix it. My problem with that is if I go to fix it, I'll want to actually make it a more viable story and not just correct tenses and stuff that need to be fixed. So we could edit this in August, September and October. So I'm going to use the working titles for these books. So the working title for this book, before it was written, was Annie. It doesn't say much about what's going on in the novel. Now, obviously, I can't use that for a whole lot of reasons. One, there is, I believe it's an actual book. I know there's a comic book and a movie of that name, of the little redheaded girl with the dog. We all know the story. But I believe that it's based on a novel to begin with, though I'm not positive on that. Maybe it was a comic and the movie came from the comic. Because I know there's an Annie comic, because she has like no eyes. I mean, she has. If you've ever seen the old school Annie comic, you know she has whites where her eyes should be, but there's like no dot, no irises, no actual eyes in a lot of the panels. It's kind of freaky. If you haven't seen it, Google it. It may give you a laugh. You might find it disturbing. So we could Also, the reason I'm calling this book one is solely because it was the first one written, not because it's the first one of the set. So the next one I plan to write, the working title for that is Nights, which is short for Night's Forgotten Children. Of all the working titles, that's the one that may actually see publication with that name, because I don't know, I really like that title, and that story in my head has had that title pretty much since inception. So, but that story is already pushing at me now that this is done. Actually, a little bit before this was done, was starting to push at me to want out. And so much so that I made a video, we talked about this, that I was debating on July's camp, sticking with the 50 rewrite for fun and just an escape from my brain, or go ahead and starting on Nights. My big issue with the 50 rewrite is still the only sticking point to that now for me is the fact that that's a lot of words to write for nothing to do with. So then we could write Nights in September and October. I would guess it would be done by then. And then November, we would probably go for, well, we could go backwards and finish 50 Shades, but I don't really want to do that. We could do, again, these numbers are solely based on writing order, not series order. And if I haven't talked about this book series in depth, I'm going to make a video about that next. In fact, that's going to be tomorrow's video. And then July will start the vlog, daily vlog of writing insanity. Then, you know, November for camp, we could do Cheryl. That's the working title for the third one. Again, doesn't say much about what's going on in the book, except for, I mean, obviously it's going to be one of the major characters. And do Cheryl for November and December. And then January we could edit Nights and Cheryl. Well, it depends on how long it takes me to edit this. It'll give me a better flavor for how long it's going to take me to edit the others. Because that's my process now. And I know this is going to end up being a little bit longer of a video, but I want to talk a little bit about the actual, for me, process of writing. And I'm going to close this and you can just see my background for a minute. When I write, I do not outline in your classic sense of, you know, taking a piece of paper by hand or taking, you know, a program and outlining what's going to happen in this chapter, what's going to happen in this chapter, what's going to happen in that chapter. I also do not plot my novels. I don't say that like it's wrong. Outlining, if it works for you, great. Plotting, if it works for you, great. I'm a firm believer that you as the artist, you as the writer, you have to do what works for you. Not what works for me or anybody else. Just what tends to work for you. Now, with Annie, you may have noticed that at some point I did do something of a quasi outline in that around chapter 2 or 3, I had an idea of how the chapters would fall and how many chapters there would be, and I named all of the chapters that. Now, I ended up staying within that guideline, but Scrivener does have the function and the movability, which I love, that if I had been writing and found that I needed to add a chapter, or that 2 chapters weren't going to work separately, they more needed to kind of be together, I would have made that change. There was a point later on around chapter, I want to say it was around 7 or 8, where I had an idea of what was going to happen in each of the following chapters. And what I did, okay, I'm going to pull it back up, I'm a liar. What I did is so I was in here-ish, and I went and I opened up, because they were empty, and just wrote a real quick, let me move my lunch for a second. I wrote a real quick, in this chapter, oops, I'm not even typing. In this chapter, A, B, and C is going to happen. So that I wouldn't forget what I thought was going to happen in that chapter. Now, that worked to an extent. That did not work to an extent. That worked in an extent that, because I was bouncing around chapters, once I finally got the back filled in 1 through 8, I just went ahead and went straight 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Every now and then I'd have a brief, there's magic in this book, so I'd have a brief, ooh, this spell, it should be done this way. So I'd go down to the chapter that spell was in, and I'd write it. Now, if, as I wrote, I found out, oh wait, I need to move that spell, I could just copy it from where it was and paste it to the new place it needed to go. I did not have that problem. I will say that. I was lucky in there that I didn't have that kind of issue. And that's as close to an outline as I got. I did notice when I would start the chapter, of course, when I would start writing, I would delete that little note at the top about what was supposed to go on with the chapter, and then I'd get halfway through the chapter, and I wouldn't necessarily remember, oh, what else was supposed to happen here. I also found myself, as I was writing, even though, and I've said this before, I'm sure, that I've had this idea for the story in my mind for a very long time, certain subtleties changed. The overall narrative stayed the same. The beats stayed the same. But some things I thought would come in didn't end up coming in. Some things I didn't think would come in ended up coming in. And it's changed a little bit of the next book in the series, which also happens to be the next book that I am considering writing. So if we were going time-wise book speaking, the one I just got finished writing would be book 5. and the one I'm about to do is 6. And then the one I'm thinking about trying to do for November Nano is book 4. See what I mean by they're all kinds of out of whack? But I always knew, because this particular story was personal to me. The rest of them are, well, all my stories are personal to me, but this one in particular draws more from my real life than any other. And so it's always been the one that I've held the closest. It's also the story that I had first. I had the thought of this story in a much different iteration than it sits now, but still the same basic beats of the main character. Different finish, but still. When I was 10, somewhere between 8 and 10. And I've had it since then. It's never gone away. It's morphed a little bit of what it is to what it's become, but not much. The ending changed, and then the ideas for the other books came in, and I saw the way I could make this an overarching story if I ordered them the correct way. And the number that I think I'm going to write of these novels may end up being incorrect. They may end up being 5 instead of the 7 I originally envisioned. I haven't decided yet what I'm doing with 1, 2, 3. If they're good enough to be separate, or if I should just drop 3 because it's the weakest. Do 1 and 2 together in one book, since it's the same lead character with the same other characters. Because those 2 are the only 2 books, 1 and 2, that if you would have to read in order, read 1 and then 2. So when you get to 2 and certain things are being said about the villain or the main character or whatever that is dealing with stuff that happened in 1 in a shorthand way, so I'll look at Harry Potter, if you're in book 4 or 5 and they say, don't you remember the time Hermione hit Malfoy? She's a badass. Now, I'm not saying that sentence exists. I'm just cobbling something together. That did happen. You, as a reader, if you've read them in order, would remember back in book 3, 2, 3. No prisoner. That's 3. Back in book 3, where she hit him. If you haven't read that yet, you wouldn't remember that. You'd be like, what are they talking about that Hermione hit Malfoy? Did I miss something in an earlier chapter? I want these to work where you can pick any one of them up and just read it. If you read the other ones together and you read it together, you'll see the arc that is the overall, for lack of a better word, plot. But if you just pick up book 4 or book 6, you're not in the middle of a bunch of characters that you don't know nothing about and have no idea what the hell is going on thus far in the book. And the closest books that are a set but separate that I know of that I've read that fit that mold are the Incarnations of Immortality set by Piers Anthony, which is one of my favorite sets of novels. And other than the 8th one that he tried to write way after the set was done, which I don't even count as an actual Incarnation book. Fight me in the comments if you disagree. We'll have a debate. We'll keep it civil, but we can have a debate on that. But of the original 7, I think the weakest is 2, is Time. Because Norton's story takes so long, and there is very little payoff to it until almost the very end. And then even then, it's not much of a payoff when it comes to the rest of the sets as a whole. You could never read the Time book and miss nothing. But they were written to be that way, which is fine. My problem is, by reading the Time book, you don't gain really anything either. I mean, you gain a little, tiny little bit. Maybe. Maybe. So, like, now I look at Annie and Knights, and I've realized with how I've written Annie and how the time period is that I'm going to have to change Knights ever so slightly, but that change doesn't hurt anything in the novel for Knights itself. It doesn't really change anything. It doesn't hurt anything. And if you just read Knights, well, first of all, no one would ever know anything changed because I'm the only person that knows the story before it's in the freaking book. But if you're a close reader and good with description and you've read them all, you'll do the math and be able to figure out that something's going on with the main character. And if you don't figure that out, it doesn't hurt anything at all, because just because it doesn't. But I know I've rambled on entirely way too long, and I have no idea if I made any sense or not. My main thing right now that I want to say, and then I'm going to end this video after entirely way too long, I'm sure, is, for me, outlining is a no-go. It does not work. What little bit I've tried, either when I got into that chapter, I forgot what it was supposed to be and went on out of my tush, or things changed, came a little early, went a little late, and so they didn't happen necessarily in the chapter they were supposed to. But if outlining helps you, do it. If note-taking helps you, do it. Whatever helps you, do it. As always, like, comment, subscribe below. You know, do all the do's. I want to thank everyone that's writing or reading, anyone that comments. I don't know what I want to say anymore. That's definitely a sign that it's time to end this dang thing. I want to thank everyone who's watching, all my new subscribers. Thank you so very much. And as always, have a very great day.